In a much earlier exercise, I talked about the difficulties of positioning elements in the early days of the web. Gradually things got better, although it was still a major pain point until we arrived at CSS Grid. Do you remember the feeling when you drove a car for the first time, that sense of freedom, power, just the pure exhilaration of it? Well, someone who used to do some pretty dicey things to get pages to look right, hopefully there's a statute of limitation on those, that's how I feel about CSS Grid. You can take ridiculously complex layouts and achieve them with ease using CSS Grid. I have a confession. I used to say that CSS was designed by people who wanted to be programmers, but just weren't smart enough. It was like, hey, real programmers use curly braces, so we'll use curly braces. Hey, real programmers use semicolons, so we'll use semicolons. I know, I'm bad. That was elitist, snarky, and downright mean. But honestly, it was not altogether unjustified. And it all came down to one thing, CSS positioning. There's a word that strikes fear still into the heart of front-end programmers, float. To do positioning, you had to use a property called float. What did it do? I'm still not entirely sure. Something about moving the HTML element out of its normal positioning and doing something with it. You could float left or right or both, and you had to clear the floats. And mainly you had to use a bunch of Kabbalistic incantations, pray to the CSS gods, and hope. And most of the time that hope went unfulfilled. And then came CSS Grid. I don't know what inspiration the authors of CSS Grid were under, but it was a powerful one. So let me stop gushing at this point and let you go onto the exercise. You'll get just a little taste of how great CSS Grid is. I took the main page of the Louvre and replicated its layout using CSS Grid. I can't teach you all the cool stuff about CSS Grid in these exercises, but if you continue along a path to becoming a professional programmer, something I fervently hope you'll do, you'll find that there are some technologies that make front-end programming just plain fun. One of them is CSS Grid. Another is React, a JavaScript framework that I've alluded to, but which too is outside the scope of these exercises. So on to this exercise, and then on to exercise 59.